Imagine waking up to this in your room in the middle of the night. I have to give you a warning for this case. Please don't watch if you're easily disturbed. Now, what makes this case so unnerving is that this man could literally be your relative, your husband, your neighbour. It was 1957 on the Channel Island of Jersey. A young woman waited innocently at a bus stop. Suddenly she was startled by a man coming up behind her and wrapping a rope round her neck. He dragged her to a field and brutally arred her before fleeing. She was traumatized, but thankfully still alive. Soon there were multiple victims reporting similar crimes. The women reported that the mystery attacker smelt really musty. Then in 1960, the attacks would become even more horrifying. On the 14th of February, a 12-year-old boy woke in the night and was startled. A terrifying man was stood at the foot of his bed in a horrifying rubber mask. He was also wearing nail-studded wristlets. Like in his initial attacks, the intruder tied a rope around the victim's neck. He dragged the boy into a field and arred him. Shortly after, he broke into the cottage of a woman and her daughter in the middle of the night. It was 1:30 a.m. and the woman was absolutely terrified by the noise of someone entering her home. She grabbed the phone to ring for help, but the intruder had cut the telephone lines. The woman managed to escape and call for help, but by the time she'd got back, the attacker had arred her teenage daughter. The mystery attacker left a trail of terror everywhere he went. He was systematically targeting houses with children inside. He'd break in and arr them wearing the hideous rubber mask. One of his victims was a boy of just 8 years old. Residents in the local area were understandably terrified. They all feared being the next victim of the man that they were calling the Beast of Jersey. Now, police initially blamed a local fisherman for these attacks off literally no evidence, and it was so compelling that the locals got wind of this and burned his house down. The innocent man left the area, but they knew it wasn't him because the attacks continued. The real culprit was a man named Edward Paisnel. He was a seemingly normal man with a wife. Horrifically, he was actually volunteering at the time, looking after vulnerable children. There were rumours that he was abusing both the children in his care and the staff. Meanwhile, investigators were taking ages to figure out who the Beast was. In 1966, a letter arrived at the police station from the Beast, and it stated, "My dear sir, I think that it is just the time to tell you that you are just wasting your time, as every time I have done what I always intended to do, and remember it will not stop at this, but I will be fair to you and give you a chance. I have never had much out of this life, but I intend to get everything I can now. I have always wanted to do the perfect crime. I have done this, but this time let the moon shine very bright in September, because this time it must be perfect, not one, but two. I am not a maniac by a long shot, but I like to play with you people. You will hear from me before September, and I will give you all the clues, just to see if you can catch me. Yours very sincerely, Wait and See." He continued to break into homes and attack people. It wasn't until 1971, when Edward got pulled over for going across the traffic lights on a red light, that things would all start to unfold. Police found the terrifying mask inside his car, and also the coat with nails around the wrists. He was arrested and ultimately found guilty of the string of horrific crimes. He was given 30 years in prison. He was actually let out in 1991 on good behaviour, but had a heart attack and died shortly after.